Hello everyone, Tactical Lich here. Welcome back to another multiplayer battle where I'm trying out this Ogre army build that I've been using ever since pretty much the start of Total Warhammer 3. It is a rather static Ogre box build where I mostly rely on the firepower of the Nobbler Trappers and Lead Belchers to do the damage, but with the rework to the army ability, things might not work as well since I actually need my units charging into combat to get those army ability recharged. Anyways, let's see what happens here as I'm going with a front line of Nobbler, second line of Nobbler Trappers, and a bunch of mobility in the form of Saber-Tusk packs and Blood Vultures scattered around. The backline is guarded by a bunch of Ogre Bulls and 2 Man-Eaters with great weapons as well. Leading the army is a single Slaughtermaster of the Great Maul with Troll Guts and the extra ingredient. Now for the other side of the battlefield, we have Cannonballs playing as Beastmen here, going with a front line of Angkor Herds, with some of them with spears, some of them without, a second line of Angkor Raiders, and a third line of Minotaurs with great weapons. 4 of them, in fact. Actually, one of them does not have great weapons, and it's the Regiment of Renowned Butchers of Kalkengard that does have regeneration. So a lot of anti-large monstrous infantry presence, and also one very elite, not specifically anti-large, but also very tanky Minotaur here. Other than that, we have a bunch of mobility, a bunch of Cannonballs, actually only 2 Cannonballs, and that's it for the main army, with a leadership of Malagor the Dark Omen coming in with Flock of Doom and Doom and Darkness to break the rather flimsy leadership of Ogre Kingdoms. That's it for the army build. Let's get the battle started. Battle begins and my box starts moving up, trying to get in range and hammer those Beastmen formations with the giant Cannonballs. Though the Beastmen mobility just flanking around trying to get in position and maybe hit up my missile back line. The Cannonballs are now moving around the range of my Lead Belchers here, just shifting on the edge and not giving my Lead Belchers the best shot. The Belchers moving up, not unloading into Angkor Herds, but instead shooting at the Minotaurs. This was definitely a bit more of a mistake on my end. If I targeted the Angkor Herds, I can devastate their formations and make them much weaker in the frontline melee combat, and instead these Angkor Herds are able to get into combat in full strength, and with the help of some Cannonballs and maybe even the Minotaurs coming in, they will certainly wreck my Nobbler front line, who has charged into melee. But at the same time, these 4 Nobbler Trappers, because they're a missile unit, they don't actually charge into combat and are not helping me with charging the army ability. A lot of the units are also being held in reserve right now, the Man-Eaters, Ogre Bulls, and the double Lead Belchers. Unloading into now the Angkor Raiders, trying to whittle down the enemy's missile support here, as the Angkor Raiders are quite threatening against my lightly armored Man-Eaters, Ogre Bulls, and the Lead Belchers. But the problem really are those Minotaurs with great weapons crushing the first line of Nobblers, especially the Butchers of Kalkengard, having the terror trait, routing off these Nobbler Trappers early as well, and now I'm being forced to throw in these Ogre Bulls, Man-Eaters, everything I have to stem the tide of some very, very angry Beastmen cows. A third unit of Minotaurs with great weapons breaching through, and a 4th unit of Minotaurs are on the side. They're crushing some Nobbler Trappers in melee combat. I'm throwing in the 2nd unit of Man-Eaters and even more Ogre Bulls, hoping to stop this tide of Minotaurs with great weapons, and I'm getting some good damage against the Minos. The problem is that because of all these reserve units engaging in the front line there, I have no longer the units needed to protect the Lead Belchers at the back, and now the Cannonballs can just walk around my flanks and just hit up the Lead Belchers from behind. It's quite a long way around, so I still have some time to try and win the front line. Saber-Tusk packs there just holding down the enemy Angors and Minos, while I am beating up the Minos in the front line, which is fine and all. Man-Eaters doing certainly a good job here, trading into those monstrous infantry, but you can see that my flank is now exposed. Now Cannonballs are slamming into the backs of these committed Ogre Bulls and getting a really nice rear charge, and these Cannonballs can move on to the next exposed units like these Lead Belchers here. I can probably respond with the Saber-Tusk packs. Nope, Masterful Micro, they're slipping a 3rd unit of Cannonball to hit up the Lead Belchers, and the 2nd unit of Cannonball delivering a hammering charge into the exposed backs of the Man-Eaters with great weapons, while the Butchers of Kalkengard Anfield holding them down. And there goes my Man-Eaters, who could have still put up a good fight against the Minos, but the problem is that there is a devastating rear charge, and their HP is gone, and I don't have a meat feast at this point to heal them up. So 1 Man-Eater is gone, only 1 Man-Eater remains to hold down this crumbling front line with no support. So I feel like I have to use an army ability right now just to even the odds in the middle fight, dropping in the Massacre and boosting the melee attack on these man-eaters, hoping to do a bit more damage against the enemy butchers of Cannonballs and the Cannonballs here. The problem is that I don't have many units left on the battlefield, with most of the balance of power resting on the backs of the lead belchers here. Everything else is either busy fighting something else, being depleted, or simply routed, so nothing left to protect them. Beastmen mobility still freely roams the battlefield, while my own mobility here, blood vultures, trying to shut down the Angkor Raiders or rear charge Cannonballs and took way too much attrition damage in combat, while the saber-tusk packs committed to holding the front line and are too busy right now. Man-eaters with great weapons are being nuked down in terms of leadership by that Doom and Darkness, and they have been routed despite there's a Shogut trying to sustain their HP. And Beastmen having all the mobility and monsters on their side, they will not allow these man-eaters to come back, having total control on the battlefield mobility after rely on a couple lead belchers and a bunch of tattered nobler units for the faint hope of maybe kiting out the Beastmen with enough damage. But the hope is definitely very, very faint, as the lead belchers will once again be forced to stop firing and flee for their lives. Now that the Minotaurs are here, plowing through the nobler trappers, there are still some nobler trappers shooting at the back of Angkor herds, but my Slaughtermaster is routed and the man-eaters are nowhere to be seen anymore. There are still some Ogre Bulls here trying to push back enemy Angkor Raiders, but there are some tattered Minotaurs with great weapons coming here, turning those Ogre Bulls into mincemeat. Usually it's the other way around, with the Ogre Bulls turning somebody else into mincemeat, but this time the Ogres have met their end. Lead belchers surrounded by Minotaurs and Centaurs, they will be making their last stand while the Slaughtermaster is still routing, not being allowed to come back. Being chased by the butchers of the Beastmen, the butchers of Cannonballs. Angkor Raiders are still surviving as well, despite being hammered hard by the lead belchers. And that shall be army losses, that shall be victory for the Beastmen, and GG to Sigos for the win. GG to my opponent Sigos, and that was a great game. Great use of the Minotaurs crushing my nobler front line. I did make the mistake of leaving those Angkors untouched by the lead belchers. I definitely should have pounded them with the artillery here. And with the support of the infantry there, the Beastmen were able to push through my frontline defenses and get to the lead belchers in the back. Also just trading really well into the man-eaters, despite having that stat disadvantage here, but because they have the infantry support and of course the spells from Malagord there, that Doom and Darkness in the end, forcing my man-eaters into an early rout, the Minotaurs were able to win out the melee trade with a little bit of hammer and anvil action from the Centaurs as well. The Centaurs, you can see, getting some great damage value over the course of battle, rear charging into my Ogre Bulls, rear charging into my man-eaters, and also fighting back those blood vultures and saber-tusk packs. The Angkor Raiders got hammered mostly by the lead belchers, so not a lot of value, and Malagor himself getting some okay damage from the Flock of Dooms, but more importantly, great uses of the Doom and Darkness to turn some fights in their favor. Now for my Ogre Kingdom's army there, I was playing way too static with my build here. A lot of the units, the Nobler Trappers and the Lead Belchers, that's basically like 6 units not charging into combat and are not charging the army ability. And as a result, all I had over the course of battle was basically 3 charges of the abilities. And I used 2 of those charges on a Massacre, so no healing for me in this battle outside of the Trollgut, and I really could have used that on my Man-Eaters, who have been crushed by those Minotaurs and Centaurs in melee. Lead Belchers here doing an okay work, but unfortunately just not quite able to earn back the value and carry the game for the Beastmen army, as the Minotaurs were basically in their face most of the battle. Ogre players with the army ability overhaul definitely need to take a more aggressive stance in battle, constantly charging into melee combat to charge up the army ability, and that means Ogre Kingdoms now will be specializing more in that melee combat, melee rush, and static artillery builds like the Lead Belchers and Nobler Trappers spam here will be way less viable. And yeah, that's gonna be it for today's battle. I hope you all enjoyed this little bit of multiplayer action between me and Sigos on the Vermin League ladder. And if you want to see more Total Warhammer multiplayer action, be sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Tactical Edge, signing out.